Hey Hawks, it's Ms. Okada.
And Mrs. Switzer, and on this week's podcast, two true crime fanatics are going to talk to you about El Dorado crime.
How was your day?
It was good. How was yours?
Fantastic.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah. Teachers have conversations like this all the time, you know, but then after school hours, it's a little bit different.
Yes. So Miss Okada and I, this is Mrs. Switzer, by the way, have been friends for a while.
Since I started here.
Yeah.
20 years ago.
And so we have conversations outside of class, and we text each other a lot. We send a lot of texts.
Yeah. And the things that we like are very similar, and the kind of humor that we have is very similar. The things that we laugh about is very similar. We send each other texts like back and forth. Sometimes it's about gardening.
A lot of times it's about gardening. It's me asking for help with my garden.
Because you're always off season.
Yes, Miss Okada telling me that I've planted everything during the wrong season. That's a frequent occurrence. And then we also talk a lot about true crime.
Yeah, and a lot of true crime podcasts we listen to, or true crime shows that we're into, and then try to solve whodunit. And books, too.
And books. Yes.
Yeah.
So we thought it would be fun to share some El Dorado true crime with the audience today.
Yeah.
So we're going to start. We decided we would kind of do this a la My Favorite Murder, where if you know that. No, that's wrong. Yes, My Favorite Murder, where they each tell a story. So, but then Miss Okada's really going to not tell a story so much. I'm going to tell a story, though. So
yes.
We'll start with me. So I'm going to tell the mysterious disappearance and subsequent reappearance of Fluffy the cat. And I have to give a shout out first to Bob Thomas and Connie Gross, who are former El Dorado teachers, for providing the details for this story. I should say that they have slightly different versions of how Fluffy reappeared, and so I am choosing to go with the one that Mrs. Gross provided because she was more directly involved.
I feel like you should actually say, like, who Fluffy the cat is.
I'm
sorry.
I get there?
Goodness.
Do you see my 4 pages of notes?
It's a lot of notes.
All right. So, okay, Joy. I'm going to take you back in time to the 70s and 80s at El Dorado High School. So in the 70s and 80s, and then even in the early 90s, there was this physiology teacher at El Dorado High School who was known for many things. But one of the most awesome things that he was known for was that when you got an A on his tests, he would give you an autographed picture of himself on his motorbike. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And his name was Ken Pence. And he... I don't know when he started doing the autograph thing, but it's a really smart idea. I mean, I only have pencils that say Mrs. Switzer thinks I'm great, and I'm not even really good about giving those out.
And I have a stamp with my face on it, and I stamp students' work once in a while with my face on it. Students love it.
Well, they loved getting these photographs, these autograph photographs from Ken Pence. Anyway, all that to say, in physiology, he taught physiology. And they dissect animals, as you may or may not know. Mm-hmm. I did not take physiology, probably because they dissected animals, but that's what they do. And one of the animals that they dissect is a cat, Fluffy the cat. Mm-hmm. Now, in an effort not to waste these cats, they once they were dissected, they were used for various lessons, and then at the end of the year, they would throw them away. I don't know how. I don't know if, they called animal control, come pick up all these carcasses. Or how that worked, but they would get disposed of. Anyway, some point in the early 80s, a group of really inquisitive students decided that they wanted to take the dissection a little bit further, and they basically completely cleaned this cat so that all that was left was a skeleton. Mm-hmm. Now, if you are Mr. Pence and you love learning so much that you give your students autographed pictures of yourself when they finish a test, there's no way that you're going to let this symbol of the hard work of students just be tossed by the wayside.
Absolutely not.
No way. So it's going to serve as a beacon, a reminder to future students. This is what you should want to be like in my class. You should want to dissect the cat completely.
Okay, for a second I thought you meant that everyone should want to be that dissected cat. That would be gross.
That would be. That's not what I meant.
Okay.
So he kept this cat. He decided to keep this cat to serve as a reminder. So this particular cat, which got named Fluffy, do you get it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
he doesn't have any fur.
Yeah.
Not fluff.
No, that's
non-fluff.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Punny.
That was a punny name to name a cat. I don't know who named him, but his name is Fluffy. He remained a permanent fixture in the classroom. He was hung up somehow in the classroom with his name on it. And it served as an inspiration for years to come. Okay, so then fast forward. Then in the early 90s, when a young wide-eyed me was a student at El Dorado, living my best flannel shirts and high-waisted jeans life, the school got a new assistant principal. And she was an animal lover and was not a fan of Fluffy being on display in the classroom. And so she thought it was disrespectful. So Fluffy had to leave, and it was a sad day for all. But the science teachers decided that Fluffy didn't have to go permanently away. He could just be like relocated. Sometimes you have to do that with animals, you know? We had a bunch of skunks in our backyard a couple years ago. We had to relocate them. During this time, this was before the current remodel of the school, obviously, because I was a student. It was in the 90s. There was a large common room in the middle of the science department that had these big glass display cases. And so a very resourceful teacher, decided to turn one of those into a habitat for Fluffy. When I think about this, I envision like when you go to the Museum of Natural History and you go to the like California wildlife section, right? And then
where he's like, they're trying to position him.
Well, and it's like there's a tree in there, and there's a log, and there's some rock. There's a quail, maybe a bobcat, and then in the middle of all this is Fluffy.
So it's like a whole diorama for Fluffy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was just Fluffy and maybe a rock. But when I picture it, I picture a full-on montage of like all these menagerie of animals and then in the middle is Fluffy in a pilgrim suit, because at some point they decided we should costume Fluffy.
Okay.
And so they had this whole can filled with costumes. He had a pilgrim costume. He had a Santa costume. I'm pretty sure I remember him having a raincoat for when it was spring, like a little yellow, yellow rain slicker. Yeah.
I think I've seen pictures of Fluffy in that.
So people would come down just to see this. Like, what's Fluffy's latest fit gonna be? That was a nod to
his
youths.
OOTD.
Yeah. Okay, well, this is a crime show, so there has to be a crime.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get to the crime now.
Okay.
One year, a couple years later, the science teachers walk in. Fluffy's gone.
Completely missing.
The case is open. No sign of tampering. No doors are, broken down.
The alarms have not been
sounded.
It's an inside job.
Well, this is the question, right? Yeah. So there was no and we didn't have camera footage. Well, we have cameras on campus now, but I don't think they're in classrooms anyway.
Yeah.
But, that's the one thing is where's the camera footage? We don't have any. So nobody knew. This was going to be a tough case to solve because it could have been anybody. Could have been an administrator who just decided we're done with Fluffy. It could have been a student who was like, that cat is so cool, I want to put him in my bedroom. It could have been a custodian. It could have been anyone. It could have been a science teacher just playing a joke on the rest of the science department. How are you going to solve this? Or it could have been a ghost.
Could have been a ghost.
That's always.
Yeah, right?
It usually is.
Yeah.
Let's be real. So it could have been anyone. So they sent out all these pleas to people. Please help us find Fluffy, to no avail. No information ever came. What did come a few weeks later were several letters. They started coming occasionally in the mailboxes of two of the teachers. The one who started dressing Fluffy, and then Connie Gross, who helped me with the details of this story. And in these letters that was written in a handwriting that they could not really decipher were photos of Fluffy in various, like the Travelocity gnome, like just showing up in various places. Fluffy at the local middle school. Fluffy at the Huntington Beach Pier.
He was having a life.
Fluffy at a local park, but they
Not
never.
too many scandalous places though.
No.
Okay,
no.
good.
And they had letters, but no clue about where he was or
no threats to get rid of him.
No ransom.
Okay.
Just hey, living my best life down in Huntington Beach. Dolphins are out today. Love Fluffy. So, as you know, as a true crime aficionado, the first 48 hours are
most crucial,
and it has been well beyond 48 hours at this point. So it became a cold case. Sad.
Fluffy's gone.
Yes, except
His memories.
for the moment. Yes. But if you remember, the title of this was The Disappearance and Subsequent Reappearance
Aha.
of Fluffy. So, listeners, the teachers at El Dorado like to have a holiday party every year. And one of the most fun events at our holiday party is the White Elephant Gift Exchange.
We're talking about that now. Okay.
It's a sidebar. I'm sidebarring with a purpose.
Okay.
The White Elephant Gift Exchange. Why is the White Elephant Gift Exchange so fun, Miss Okada?
Because it's inappropriate.
No. No, that's not why.
Because we get to get gifts or gifts that are ridiculous.
Yes.
And the looks on everyone's faces
Yes.
as they get it is priceless.
And in particular, there are a handful of gifts that are these like returner gifts
Yes.
where it's been passed down year after year after year, and then people add to it.
Yes.
Which is very stressful. If you get that gift, that's a commitment.
Can I just tell you that I'm the one who started that sleigh?
Yeah, thanks for the sleigh.
There's this ugly sleigh that got passed on from year. I'm sorry, sidebar. But we had this sleigh, and it was brought by someone, returned it, and it was like not aluminum, it's plastic, painted in god-awful colors, and it had like a not real plant in it, in styrofoam, and I got that one year. I think it was the first year that I went to a holiday party, and I took it home, and I said, what can I do with this? I'm going to repack this and send it back. So I covered it. And I mean, I covered it with plastic jewels, hot glue gun, that whole thing. And I put a little card in it with a gift card for like, I think Tall Mouse at the time, like a craft center, and said, whoever gets this next, you better make this pretty. And then, so the next person like added to it. Some people added more like little elves into it.
There were faces of all the teachers as elves. And then Tiffany Badger got it, and her husband is a lighting designer at Disney. And he made it so it had lights that changed in sync with certain songs.
Disney songs.
Yeah.
That play at, everyone coveted that sleigh at that point. But I just want to say that I started it.
Well, and this is the problem with that sleigh is that it's a pressure, because then you have to commit to going to next year's party.
And it better be as gaudier than it came to you.
And you had to do something with the sleigh.
Yeah.
Okay, so this year, back to the story, because sidebar's done.
Bad.
All right. No, it's not bad. It was good. So the year of the disappearance of Fluffy, the attendance at that party was low. It was, and so they just decided we're not going to do the White Elephant Gift Exchange.
Oh, no.
But the host of the party said, well, there's one gift that I have to give. I have been told that this has to go to Connie Gross. And so he presented Mrs. Gross with a box with a beautiful bow. Mm-hmm. And she thought, this is strange. Why? We're not doing White Elephant. Why am I getting this big box? Well, she unwraps the box. And what do you think was in the box? Fluffy was in the box. Fluffy had returned. Great joy spread throughout the land, or at least through the science department. And the cat came back.
Fantastic.
Yeah. They didn't know who took him. There was no note attached. The person who gave it to her and said, I'm supposed to give you this, said, this is not me. I was just told to give you this gift. I don't know who it's from. Or no, he did know. He was sworn to secrecy, though, so he didn't say anything.
Okay.
Well, then, in 2009, El Dorado lost a beloved PE teacher who also happened to be a great friend to the science department, Mr. Conley. And Mr. Conley had taught science off and on throughout the years, and he would join them on Friday. They had Friday treats in the science department, and he would join them. And when he passed away in November, remember we had that big, huge memorial in the gym. And tons of people showed up. Former students, former teachers, family, friends, hundreds of people were at this memorial, including, obviously, Mr. Conley's family. And two of his daughters walked up to the science department and handed them little buttons that they had made. And on the buttons, it said, TC took Fluffy.
That is the best ending to this story.
So, yes, it's so all along, Mr. Conley had Fluffy and had been hiding Fluffy in his attic. Which is actually not entirely surprising if you knew Mr. Conley.
Yes, that's true.
He very much was about, he loved to play jokes, and he was so lighthearted and always looking for the funny in things.
Harmless funny.
Right, harmless funny. And what's lovely about the ending to this story is that the way in which Fluffy, this all came about, the fact that his daughters on this day that was probably filled with a lot, was filled with a lot of grief, brought some lightheartedness and joy to the event by surprising the science department with this reveal of it was Terry all along that had Fluffy. Nobody had ever suspected him. So Fluffy the cat, is now, I think, still in the science department somewhere.
I believe so.
You can go down there. Now everyone's going to want to go find him and see Fluffy the cat. I don't know if he still wears costumes, but he's there, and hopefully that is where he will stay. And
that's where he should stay.
Is the story of Fluffy the cat.
The disappearance.
And reappearance.
Okay, so I'm going to bring you a couple stories. And I am not going to say the names of all of them because I don't want to get anyone in trouble. But there are some other little things that show up all over El Dorado. And there are histories to them. So the first one I want to talk about is the gnome. And yes, you might have heard about Harold the gnome.
That's not the same gnome, though.
No.
Harold was just last year.
Just last year. But I want to talk about gnomes from a while back. Okay. So,
sidebar.
Yeah.
Mr. Switzer hates gnomes. So for Halloween, Owen's first year, I dressed him up as a gnome. But I didn't tell Mr. Switzer, and I just dressed him up as a gnome, and then Mr. Switzer came home, and his son was dressed as a gnome.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and one time somebody left a gnome on our doorstep.
Good times.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about another teacher who hated gnomes. So I guess I am going to say his name. Mr. Mike Oberly, when he was here on campus, he created a garden of his own. So he looked around campus and said, I need to have my own garden. And so he built his own garden. He planted these beautiful plants, took care of it every day, made sure it was watered and green. And he would be like, do not anyone come near my garden and mess it up. And he would tell people on a daily basis, do not touch my garden. And he would love that garden, took really great care of it. Well, one day he went out into his garden and he would find a gnome and he'd get all mad and he'd pick up that gnome and go back to the science department and said, who put this gnome in the middle of my garden? And then the next day or next week or next few days later, another gnome showed up. And it got to the point where he was getting gnomes in his garden like every few days. Like he would get a gnome in his garden every few days and a new gnome would just randomly pop up in his garden.
That's a lot of money someone's spending on gnomes.
Yeah. But it was done with a purpose. And he was so mad every time a gnome showed up in his garden. And to the point that at one point he would find a book on gnomes in his mailbox. And he was so angry. He's like, I've had enough of this. And like the gnome just kind of became this running joke. And there were several of us that were a part of.
You just said of us.
I'm sorry. There was several of. Well, I'm going to add us to teachers, right?
Oh, I just assumed when you said of us that you were one of the people.
No, I meant teachers.
Several
you did. Teachers who added to this gnome phenomenon. And so this gnome started showing up and creeping up in the garden and in his mailbox often. So that's the first one. There's a gnome that used to show up. We never know where that gnome came from, or gnomes.
I think I know where one of them came from. You did not do a good job of hiding your identity.
Listen, It was hilarious. I may or may not know where those gnomes came from. Mm-hmm.
How much money did you spend on those gnomes?
I did not buy the gnomes, nor did I put them in his garden. I found out about it long after this started.
Okay.
And Mrs. Oberly actually knows where the gnomes came from as well.
Oh.
So just so you know. The other one that I wanted to point out there's actually a couple things that show up all around campus. Do you guys know about Mr. Campuzano as a Ken doll that has cropped up in different parts of campus?
Yeah, that I feel like at one time he was on my desk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Don't have any clue where and who keeps moving him.
It's a Ken doll with like his face. Someone's taped like a picture of his face on the top of the Ken doll. Yeah,
it was fun. And then he would get redressed and put in different places around campus. Have no idea who started that.
Once again, I think I might have a clue.
That was not me. Again, none of these are okay. Wait, hold on. And do you know about the cat?
Fluffy?
No, not that one. The tissue holder cat.
No.
Where the tissue comes out of like the rear end. Anyway, it's a big old like tissue holder. It's a cat. It's really cute. Someone might have given it to someone for Christmas, and then students kept using all the tissue, and so that other person might have gotten fed up with it and then started hiding it in different classrooms. And if you look around, you might also see a cat lurking somewhere in the classroom.
If you find the cat, Miss Okada will give you a prize.
Yeah, because I kind of want it so that I can utilize it.
I don't know where it is.
It's in one of the world languages.
That's now we're gonna. We're gonna cause like people to on tomorrow whenever this airs to start amazing racing.
That cat showed up in like someone's classroom, and it was there for a year and a half that they didn't realize it was in their classroom.
The person didn't see it?
No.
Oh.
For a year and a half.
Wow.
You have to be really unaware.
That's a long time.
It did show up in my classroom at one point, but I noticed it 3 days in because I looked up and I was teaching my classroom, and I thought to myself, something's looking at me. What is it? And I looked up, and I don't know if you've been in my classroom, but I have a box that's for Japanese club that students created like years ago, like a decade ago. But it's a box that students will wear. But anyway, there's little armholes, and I saw like little eyeballs peeking out of it. And I was like, oh my God.
That I would have.
Cat.
That had been in my room. I would have thought it was a rat.
No, it's obviously the cat.
Okay.
Like if you saw the cat, you would know.
All right. Biography. I have a book next to my bed that is called it's like Women Who Kill, and it's all it's all
you mean like the
female
TV show?
No, it's like female, it's all like these famous female like serial killers, and I keep it by my bed just because I think it will creep Mr. Switzer out.
No, like yeah.
I listen to true crime every night when I go to sleep. Is that weird? That's weird.
That is a little weird.
It's a little weird.
I don't do that.
I do.
I don't think I've read any true crime books in a while. Oh. The last one I read was like the one that I told you by what's her name? McNamara?
Oh, I'll Be Gone in the Dark.
Yes, that's fantastic.
That was so good.
Fantastic.
Yeah. You know, they just recently solved a huge true crime. They didn't solve, they finally sentenced the guy who killed the girl out at the college. Miss
so
Davidson.
many.
I know. No, like I can't remember his name. Miss Davidson knows about it.
Anyway.
Crazy.
Just random things that we come across and we talk about.
Yes.
And then I'll be like, what? You don't watch what's that TV?
ID?
ID, yes.
I do now. Investigation Discovery.
And then just randomly, you'll turn it on and you'll be like, Women Murders or Swamp Murders or some other ones.
There's Mind of a Murderer now, and they go through all these different people who have killed. I don't know. It's fascinating. To me, it's like it's like fascinating to just look at the psychology of people. Like what makes a person decide to do that?
Yeah, and it's just a human story, right?
Yeah.
A lot of it has to do with like what makes a person do whatever they did.
Yeah.
What makes them tick. And then also, we just like in general solving things.
Yes.
Like we have passed around the games.
Yeah. Yes. But yes, my husband got a subscription to Hunt a Killer.
Yeah.
And it's like a series of you try to solve every episode is a new piece of the crime that you have to solve using ciphers and all kinds of stuff.
And then escape rooms are a lot of fun.
Yeah, escape rooms.
Yeah. We should do one.
That'd be fun.
I think Miss Pettit wants to do one soon.
We did one before.
Yeah, it was fun.
We solved it.
Yeah,
we escaped.
We did. It was kind of stressful though, working with like 8 other teachers.
Yeah, that was the most stressful ever.
That is just like a whole lot of chaos.
Everyone wants to be like, oh, no, I'm in charge.
No, I got this.
I'm in charge.
I got this part. Like everyone wants to be organized because the teacher needs everything organized.
Yeah.
So I got this corner of the room. You got that corner of the room. We need to get it.
It was very stressful.
But I think we finished with like a lot of time.
We did. We had a lot of time to spare.
Yeah, because we are awesome in that way.
Yep.
Always.
All right. Well, that's some true crime El Dorado style. Mm-hmm. If you are a fan of true crime podcasts and you have some good ones to recommend to Miss Okada and I, send them our way.
Yeah, we'll always listen.
Yeah.
Or gardening tips. Especially off-season ones.
Especially for me, because apparently I don't know how to plant things during the right time of year.
Thank you for tuning into the Hawk Talk Podcast. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or on Buzzsprout. Come back for the next episode where we will be just as amazing.